Okay, so this is the lab for the arteries. You have two pictures here, one of the arteries and one of the veins. The one in your lab handout is black and white, and this is the colored version. With or without color, you can still tell the difference between the artery picture and the vein picture. The artery picture is the one here with the, where am I at? Oh, there it is the one here where you have an arch and three large vessels coming off the top. Over here, you have a single tube that makes a Y or a V, and that goes off, and you've got the two coming up. So you either look for the V for veins or the Y for veins or the arch. Oops. The arch with three coming off. All right. So today we're doing the arteries, and I know I've already done this once, but again, if you look at the colors that they use, red, oops, red is for the blood that is high in oxygen and low, that's an and sign, in carbon dioxide. And that's your systemic arteries and pulmonary veins. The blue is blood, which is low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide. So all arteries are going away from the heart. So the heart is here. So we're going to go out towards the hands. We're going to go down in the abdomen and down each leg. So your list gives you the sequence. Again, don't forget, you can make this bigger so that you can see what I point to, because it doesn't, I can't do the annotations if I don't have it in the regular size. Okay, so coming off of, you have the heart out of the left atrium, you have the ascending aorta, which makes a U-turn as the aortic arch. And then it becomes what we call a descending aorta. Now, keep in mind that this is the diaphragm. So it's going to make a U-turn, and it's going to go behind the heart until it passes through the diaphragm. It's the thoracic aorta. Thoracic aorta. So you'll need to put some dotted lines and connect it to this aorta. It's named for the body cavity it's in. All right, so the aortic arch coming out of the left ventricle has 3 branches. The first branch is going to separate into 2. And so from here until the branching here, that's what we call the brachiocephalic trunk. There's only one, so it's on this side. Brachiocephalic trunk. Coming off of the brachiocephalic trunk and going up towards the head is on this side, it would be the left common carotid artery, the right common carotid, it's the right common carotid artery, my bad. So right common carotid artery comes off the brachiocephalic trunk. The left common carotid artery is the second branch off of the brachiocephalic trunk. See if I can clean that up. Maybe if I used black, that might be better. So the second vessel coming off of the aortic arch is the left subclavian, or the left common carotid artery. Now, the 2 common carotid arteries, you have to distinguish the left one from the right one. The other branch coming off of the brachiocephalic trunk, going towards the upper limb, is the right subclavian artery. The left subclavian artery is the third branch, and it stops at this Y, just like this one does. So this is the left subclavian artery, that third branch. So over here in this picture, this tube is going to continue down, going behind the heart, and that's that thoracic aorta, until it passes through the diaphragm. Then it becomes the abdominal aorta. Okay, so the subclavian vessels have to be distinguished between left and right, and so do the common carotid arteries. Now, all common carotids, or all common vessels, are going to branch into an internal, which is going to go to the brain, and an external, which is going to come out here to the scalp. And we'll see another vessel that there's a common and an internal and an external. Okay, regardless of which arm we look at, the subclavian stops at this branching right here. Okay, so right subclavian artery until this branch. After that branch, it becomes the axillary artery. It's the axillary artery until here, where it becomes the brachial artery. The brachial artery is then going to split into two. And from the bone chapter, hopefully you remember that the thumb is on the same side of the forearm as the radius. So this would be the radial artery, and this would be the ulnar artery. Same thing over here, axillary artery, brachial artery, radial artery, ulnar artery. And that gets the blood to the hands. All right, so once the okay, you had the aortic arch, ascending aorta, aortic arch, thoracic aorta here, and then once it passes through the diaphragm, it becomes the abdominal aorta. So from here down to here, that is the abdominal aorta. Okay, now you have an extra picture on your paper diagrams, and that's going to show you where actually the backside of the liver, or behind the liver. So diaphragm, and then you have the abdominal aorta. Okay. Then coming off of that one, you have a single vessel that comes off right after the diaphragm. And it's going to split into three. You only have to know two of these for your lab list, but you need to know all three of them for your pathways assignment. So the single one that comes off by itself is the celiac trunk, or celiac artery. So that's the first one after the diaphragm. It's a single tube. And again, it's going to split into three. The one you have to know for your lab list is this one, and that is the common hepatic artery. Common hepatic artery. It carries blood into the liver. This branch over here is called the splenic artery, and it's going to go to the spleen. The middle one is the gastric artery, and that's going to branch and go to the stomach. So up here on your diagram, you can kind of see the common hepatic artery and a little bit of the splenic but it doesn't show much of the celiac trunk, but that does come down as a single tube. Now, the next ones, which would be nice if they had drawn in the kidneys like they drew them on the vein side, but this little one and this little one are the renal arteries. Again, you may have to stop the video and blow it up so you can see where I'm pointing. The next single tube coming off is the superior mesenteric artery or superior mesenteric artery. The next one you have to know is this one down here, and it looks like it branches right there, but if you look at all the models and other diagrams, that's not what it does. But that's the inferior mesenteric artery. Inferior mesenteric artery. And I think the superior one is also on this extra picture. Okay, so that gets us to the bottom of the abdominal aorta. Now, at the bottom of the end, or the terminal end of the abdominal aorta, you have two branches, and it doesn't matter which side, but the first branch is the common iliac vein. The ilium is right here, so that's where the reference comes in. And it splits into two. The little one going towards the pelvic area is the internal iliac artery, and the one headed towards your lower limb is the external iliac artery. And that's going to continue until this branching. The external iliac artery continues as the femoral artery down to the knee, and then it becomes the popliteal artery. All right, so those are the blood vessels, the arteries on your list. Again, you're going to write some of these out in sequence on your pathways assignment. So don't forget the lab when you do that. All right, so here on the blood vessel model, you can see the ascending aorta and the aortic arch. Behind this would be that brachiocephalic trunk. This would be the right common carotid artery. This would be the right, and make sure you look at the red, it would be the right subclavian artery. This would be the right common carotid artery, right subclavian artery. It becomes the axillary artery, which becomes the brachial artery. You can see them as it kind of goes down here, but it's clearer on this side without the veins present. The brachial artery is going to split into the radial artery and the ulnar artery. Over here, you can see the abdominal aorta. You can see a little bit of that celiac trunk, and you can see the common hepatic artery, renal artery, renal artery. You can see where the superior mesenteric artery got cut off if you blow it up. Inferior mesenteric artery. Blow it up. Yeah, right here is where that superior mesenteric artery branches off, and then the inferior is down here. Okay, then you can see the if I can get this. Okay, the common iliac artery, internal iliac artery, external iliac artery, down to that branching. So it's much easier. You can see the common iliac artery, the internal iliac artery, the external iliac artery until this branching, and then after that it becomes the femoral artery. On a different model, this is the urinary model, and so here you can see the celiac trunk, the superior mesenteric artery, renal artery, abdominal aorta, inferior mesenteric artery, common iliac arteries. When we go a little farther, you can see the common iliac arteries. You can see a little bit of that internal iliac artery and the external iliac artery. Another model, again, abdominal aorta, celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, renal artery. It's kind of buried, but renal artery, inferior mesenteric artery, common iliac artery, common iliac artery. So those are two of our urinary models, but we can use them for blood vessels. In the full muscle model, you can see the aortic arch kind of goes behind, and you can see a little bit of that brachiocephalic trunk, the right common carotid artery, left common carotid artery. You don't see much of the subclavian arteries. With the, I thought I had a picture of the heart removed. Maybe it's on one of the other models. Over here, this is the posterior side of the liver. This red one is the common hepatic artery. Again, you can see the abdominal aorta, the celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, renal artery, inferior mesenteric artery, common iliac artery, and then the rectum and sigmoid colon cover up the rest. This down here would be the external iliac artery. It's not going to show the internals. Okay, so external, you can see the right common carotid artery, and you can see the right subclavian artery. With the heart in place, you can see the aortic arch. Without the heart in place, you can see the thoracic, the thoracic aorta going behind the bronchi there down to the diaphragm. You can see the abdominal aorta, the celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery, renal artery, common iliac artery. This would be the internal iliac artery. No, not that one. This one would be the internal iliac, and this would be the external iliac artery. Internal, external iliac artery. On the heart, you can see some of the same ones that we looked at for the parts of the heart. On the back of this liver, this red one is the common hepatic artery. This one I don't quite like as much, but you can see the brachiocephalic trunk. You can see the right subclavian artery, and you can see the left common carotid artery, the left subclavian artery, the axillary artery, and the brachial artery. You can see a little bit of the abdominal aorta here. So axillary artery, brachial artery, brachial artery, radial artery, ulnar artery. You can see the celiac trunk, superior mesenteric artery, abdominal aorta, common iliac arteries, external iliac arteries, femoral arteries. Okay, so again, you need to label your diagram. You need to go back through. Don't forget to use Anatomy and Physiology Revealed, because that's got diagrams as well. So you need to look at these multiple times because nobody's got an eidetic memory. Okay, so those are the arteries. They carry the blood away from the heart. All right, so that's the end of this lab.